Thank you so much for being
with us. Thank you so much, as usual. It's a pleasure to be here.
I know that you're a big literary person. You love books. I am. When you heard about Ngugi wa Thiong'o's death, what were some of the things that you remembered about this man and the Africanism that he put in a lot of us in this country?
I took a cue from the statement issued by the daughter.
Yeah.
We should mourn and we should celebrate. So in my heart, I mourn deeply. But equally, in my soul, I celebrated massively. So massive celebration, deep mourning. That emblematizes who Ngugi wa Thiong'o was.
Indeed.
My favorite African writer. Yes.
Not
my favorite African writer. Because of my background in radical scholarship.
Okay, yes.
Yes.
There is that Marxism bit of him.
Yes, of course. We moved from River Between, the Black Hermit,
Wizard of the Crow.
No, that was later.
That was later.
The transition was from...
Decolonizing the Mind.
No, A Grain of Wheat.
Okay.
Was a transitional novel between what we call critical realism and visionary aesthetics.
Yes.
That's my field of literature. So from there, he moved to Petals of Blood, the last work he wrote in English. After that, he moved straight on into
his native language, yes.
Right, from there, after that, and the tribe didn't Kemati in 76, Petals of Blood 77. Thereafter, Ngaika and Denta, when I want, Devil on the Cross and the rest of the works were written in Gikiyu. Ngugi just, epitomized not just the spirit of literary production, but equally the fire, of decolonization.
Indeed.
He was not just a theoretical thinker. He was a practical guy. He built in his village, Kamirutu, in the Limuru province of Kenya, an educational and cultural center. And he produced his work in Gikuyu. The peasants, the workers, the students participated in the production. After that, the government of Atmos shut the place down, burnt it, and put him in detention. That's when they detained a writer's prison diary. And when he published even Devil on the, Matigari, people thought there was a revolutionary force in the villages and in the mountains, rallying them against the neocolonial government of Arab Moi and so on. They thought it was a novel. So what did they do? They went to all the bookshops, sought out all the books and burnt them. And that sent the author and the book into exile. So Ngugi was, as I say, a cultural nationalist, an exponent of African literary thought and cultural thought, and a formidable Pan-Africanist. So it is sorely mixed. But he said, let's mourn him, even as we celebrate him.
It's something to really think about.
Absolutely.
Sometimes, maybe as a younger person, I keep thinking, everyone is dying. It feels that way.
Because that's the transition in nature.
Yes.
You look around you.
So is there a generation? Yeah, is there a regeneration in your
regeneration
view?
Because people are born, people grow, and people grow old, and people die off.
Of that level of literary prowess.
It's only Achebe really among that rank, and a few others. Achebe is gone, Guginan is gone, J.P. Clark is gone, and a whole lot of them gone. Of that early generation, Chris Okimofo died in the Civil War. So that first period, of post-colonial literature in Nigeria, defined and prepared by Chinua Achebe, Wole Soyinka, and the rest of them. Most of them are gone now. But that's the way life is. And good enough that the successor generations are doing incredibly well.
Okay.
From Ben Okri to Chimamanda and so on, and others in between.
Okay.
They've had their forth.
Well, let's come back to Nigeria.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about the Tinubu administration at 2.
I don't know.
There was an endorsement.
Oh yeah, all over the place.
From his party.
All over the place.
Yes. And then this gale of defections.
Yeah, sure.
And he says, look, don't worry. We're not turning into a one-party state. It's just one party making a difference.
Making a difference.
Yes.
The Honorable Minister was here, and a globally recognized and respected individual from the Mochako. I've read about him. But I'm sure he's living in a bubble. This is a second year scorecard. So he's really doing a spirited defense of his government and his president. The question you ask yourself and I ask myself is, 2 years ago, are you better off today than you were 2 years ago? That's a practical question. Nothing to do with the tunnel or the light escaping from the tunnel or the light shining bright. It's 2 years ago and today. Are you better off then or now? 90% or more of Nigerians, they said the fat cats around the regime will tell you they are worse off today. That regime scorecard, I've said it on a number of occasions, but there'll be more opportunities in future to dwell on that. But when you talk about endorsement is not by the people. It's by the political class.
Yeah, it's by his party.
Yes, and they have every reason to endorse him because they have everything at stake. This next election will be a referendum. Not on Muhammad Buhari.
Will it?
Not on Muhammad Buhari's disastrous presidency, but on his own presidency. Because if you have 4 years scorecard now to say, you elected me 4 years back, I'm sure you're happy now.
Who are the people that are going to stand against him?
Yeah, it's going to happen
for this referendum.
It is.
Who is the opposition that's going to stand against him in 2027?
Yes, I can tell you the opposition. It's going to happen. We have virtually 2 years or slightly less for the election. The regime panicked. That's why he went into election mode 2 years ahead of time. I predicted here in this studio, he will govern for less than 2 years, and it has happened. So the defections, the endorsement, the re-endorsement, the recalibrations will continue in perpetuity until the election season is upon us. Those who stand against him are massive, are many. If you see the fragmentation in the political system and the political order, it will be reconstituted somewhere down the line. PDP, of course, is having a valiant fight for its life. Nobody thought PDP was going to ever hold a National Executive Committee meeting. That held successfully with a robust communicator. People never expected to come from the party. So if that takes place, the party convention, take away the shackles of those whistlings within the party ranks and rebrands it as a formidable opposition force. And the rest of other people in Labour Party, with PWB, in NNPP, Wangoso, in Erufai, and the rest of them, these are incredibly formidable forces. Okay. What together they will coalesce.
Well, let's find out what Ayo is thinking about. Go ahead, Ayo.
Thank you, Kayla. Prof, to mark this year's second anniversary of this administration, the president put out a statement. I don't know if you have seen that statement that he put out. And when you decrypt it, you find out that there are quite a number of issues that have been raised there, part of which, includes human resources and capital building. What bothers me the most, Prof, is that on the one hand, we employed the president. On the other hand, we also employed governors. Are you satisfied with the level of collaboration, if any, between the federal government and the various states we have?
Between the federal government and the
states in Nigeria.
Let me get you right. The level of collaboration between the federal government and statecraft or something?
Yes, states.
Or the states at the subnational level?
Yes.
Okay. If that is okay, between the federal government and the subnational, government, both the state and local government. Well, it depends in which area you're talking about. For one, the Nigerian federal experiment is not a balanced federal experiment, in which case you give the states or the subnationals the kind of autonomy of space and legitimacy with which to compete with the federal government, to collaborate with the federal government, even contest with the federal government in certain instances. I'll give you a political example. The governor of Delta State and the former governor, they come to APC with a claim that they want to mainstream their people into the center. But you don't need to mainstream people into the center because the subnational is a very viable space or domain of the federal administration. If you receive your resources every month, the federal allocation, the ecology fund, maybe special derivation because of as an oil producing state, why do you need to decamp in order to mainstream? That means the center is authoritarian, the center is overwhelming. So that kind of collaboration is not even a collaboration. It's almost like a dictator.
Prof, my apologies for butting in, but would you be laying that on the state government or on the federal government?
In a physically
Just a second, Prof,
system.
if you can hear me. My
state
sincere
government
apologies.
is of the opposition parties.
My sincere apologies, Prof, if you can hear me. This instance that you just, cited, is this a fault? Are you laying it on the federal government or the states that's taking this responsibility by themselves? How does it benefit their people? What's the orientation that you see that will make politicians say, this is the direction we are going and this is why we are going there? Is that on the federal government or on the states themselves?
Okay, so now you put it this way. The Supreme Court has many injunctions now that privilege a massive support for the center. The EFCC, for example, the state government contested it, the space and spread of its operations. The Supreme Court ruled, even in everybody's home, in your family, in your local government, the EFCC, controlled by the federal, has absolute authority to operate. The local government autonomy, resulting from the Supreme Court, equally creates enormous power for the federal government. The revenue allocation formula may state 55% for the federal and so on, but by the time you look critically at the revenue formula in terms of the generation and the utilization, you discover that the federal center may command close to 70-75% of federal resources. So as well as many state government will dig in and to say we have our own independent path to capital development, to industrialization, to human enterprise build up. The massiveness of the federal center, which we have talked about for the past 20 years, that has the structure for restructuring, is so enormous that many cave in repeatedly. So the politics and economics combine to produce an unbalanced federal structure. That is why the government of the day is exploiting the weaknesses and loopholes within the federal system to drive in a transient fashion and manner most of its own social, political, and economic agenda.
Well, when you talk about a restructuring, many people would ask you, what does that mean? Have we as a people actually understood what we want to restructure?
Oh, sure. People do that because, you see, the restructuring pertains to several levels of renegotiations.
Okay.
How is the country?
Several levels of renegotiation.
How is the country composed? The structural and institutional makeup of the system, the constitutional framework. These are issues should be up for grab on the table of restructuring. The belief is that if you have a multinational, multi-ethnic, multi-faith, diverse group of peoples coming together to form a nation state, you can only have a constitution that reflects this diversity.
What is the most dire need of the Nigerian people right now when it comes to this renegotiation, in your view?
Yes. Most of the time, people talk about reducing the power potentials, both in terms of economics and then raw physical power of the center. If you have almost all the key institutions of the state operated at the center, controlled by the federal government, under the supervision of the president, they find the states and the local government as some national groups almost like mere appendages. So weaken and reduce the viability of the center, but not in a manner as to dissolve the Nigerian state. That means, you can take agriculture, for example. Even take the health and the health what the health minister talked about. There are many responsibilities of the health sector, agricultural sector, education sector that ought to go to the states and the local government, but presently controlled by the federal. But beyond that fact, the key issue again is, what kind of constitution do you have? What kind of interest does that constitution reflect? What kind of agenda do people say with that constitution? If you talk about the restructured constitution that reflects the reality of the Nigerian federal condition, you discover one critical element. The constitution is unworkable as it is. And it has shown over the past 26 years that we're just managing a contraption we don't even know its origin, in terms of the authenticity, in terms of its philosophic condition, in terms of its history of our own experience. So you need a constitution that reflects the Nigerian condition and the African condition. But it suits the political class and the president of the day to manage this kind of constitution that gives enormous power to one single individual.
I mean, in just 2 minutes, if you can help, because listening to a lot of, not just you, listen to a lot of people when they look back 2 years, many Nigerians will tell you, I don't feel better now than I did 2 years ago. But then again, has there ever been a time when the Nigerian people will say, oh, this government was fantastic, I'm doing so much. Even in every government that has come, people would always complain about one thing or the other.
The report, yes.
But I want to be able to get your thoughts on the legacy of the past 2 years of the Tinubu administration. The
legacy of the past 2 years is very simple. The rise of what I call hybrid regime, that's authoritarian in nature, very liberal in several respects. Two, a broken economic system that is very incoherent, a political order that has almost fragmented. And for me, a legacy, not of hope, but of hopelessness. That means the report card of this government in 2027 will reflect a regime that has failed to live up to expectation and that will be rightfully booted out of office by the rest of the country.
Would the AD be trying to boot
it is no longer viable now, but of course in some concourse of coalition forces, the PDP and other elements of the coalition, we come together.
What do you make of that coalition? Is that something that you're a part of?
It is. I'm not a politician in the strict sense of being a member of a political party, but I'm very clear it's not a political establishment. The PDP will lead the charge in terms of this coalition build at the end of the day, because it's very, very dominant.
How should it be structured in your view? The PDP leading it, Atiku at the helm?
No, I don't. Individuals are not important at this stage. It's a party infrastructure that must build up. Then the rest of the political apparatuses from Labour Party, NNPP, SDP, and so on, they're marching in together to create a wholesome national communion that is going to contest for power with this very narrow, insular, sometimes capricious government of the day.
With all this drama around, with the P2B situation in Labour, with the
drama is an integral part of political process. In Igbo, we call it Ndorondoro. It's a typical political Ndorondoro. You have to struggle here and there. Over time, it's not an event, it's a series of events and processes that will now lead this on to its logical conclusion.
I want to thank you so much, Professor Udenta, for being with us here on Sunrise Daily. Founding National Secretary, Alliance for Democracy. Thanks again.
It's a pleasure being with you.
Well, that is Sunrise Daily. Today, please be safe. Make sure that you look around, be conscious of your surroundings. It's a lovely weather, but please try not to get into a lot of trouble today. Be conscious of your surroundings. Make sure you're up to date with the news. We're talking earlier about something that the FCT minister was saying about the situation that happened at the Mogadishu barracks. He said it's not a terrorist attack. There was someone who had picked up something on the floor, put it in his pocket, and the thing detonated on himself. So please don't pick things on the floor. Be a little bit more circumspect. I'm Kayla Magwa. Have a great day ahead.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. Be well.